following the filming of the award-winning series Band of Brothers, Tom Hanks was asked why he did this. He said this: "Dying for freedom is not the worst thing that could happen. Being forgotten is." Today we gather so that this brave man will not be forgotten, nor the deeds he undertook, or the deeds of all New Zealanders and those in the cause of justice and peace. One of the people who has made this possible today, who has been unrelenting in his desire to see this happen, is Gabby. I would like to call on him now to say a few words.
Thank you, Padre. Colonel Peacey, Your Reverence, Honourable Mayors, Mr. Hipkins. Ladies and gentlemen, you've got to forgive me for going into detail in the beginning. I just want to try and put everybody in the picture to actually what happened, the circumstances surrounding the fall of what I call the Great Assyria. By July 1918, the Assyrian army, having been in constant contact with enemy forces since the beginning of the Great War, was reduced to 1,600 mounted troops, 2,000 infantry, 4 batteries and support units totalling 4,742 men. This army, with remnants of the Assyrian population, was surrounded and ensnared in the Persian city of Urmia. Other friendly forces within the city walls were a considerable number of Armenians who previously fled the area of Van, and a small number of Russian soldiers that did not return to their country after the revolution. This combined force came under the command of the Assyrian general Petros Iwagius, also known as Aga Petros. In 1917, surrounded and deserted by the Russian allies, the Assyrians, under the command of the great general, held the combined Turkish divisions of the 5th, the 6th, 11th and the 12th, the Sedakan Regiment, the Haluja Regiment, the Shevakan Regiment, the Panjab Regiment, and the combined Kurdish forces. 14 major engagements were recorded against the Turkish forces by the Assyrian army, all being decisive victories. The status quo could not be maintained, however, due to lack of logistical support. The Assyrian army was seriously hindered by lack of ammunition and manpower. On the 5th of July 1918, General Dunstable, commander of British forces in Persia, ordered a plane to fly from Baghdad to Urmia to deliver a letter addressed to the Assyrian commander. With some difficulty, the pilot managed to land and deliver the letter, in which General Dunstable promised aid of guns and ammunition to the village of St. Carla south of Urmia, and the Assyrians should send a detachment to meet the British at a date agreed to by the Assyrians and the British. Before they attempt to reach St. Carla, however, the Assyrians are instructed to split their forces, leave half to defend Urmia, and the other half to ride south and defeat the Turkish divisions at Suj Bula to open the road to British lines. General Petros replied on the 7th of July, and the pilot once again took to the skies to deliver the message. A return letter dated 4th of July from General Dunstable warned the Assyrians not to evacuate Urmia, lest the Turks massacre the nation, and that a column of British cavalry with supplies will meet them on the 22nd of July at the specified location agreed on by both sides. 19th of July, the British column with supplies left Bija, a town 90 miles south of the rendezvous point, and arrived at St. Carla on the 23rd, one day late, but could not find any sign of the Assyrians. In the north, the Assyrians defeated the Turkish divisions and rode south for their rendezvous. At St. Carla, the British waiting the arrival of the Assyrians were made up of 2 units, the main cavalry commanded by Colonel Bridges, 14th Hussars, and a supply column commanded by Major Moore, Dunster Force. This supply column was to remain with the Assyrians throughout the war. Among its ranks were several Anzacs handpicked for their bravery in the field, such as Captain George Savage from Q Victoria and Captain Robert Nichol, Wellington Regiment, New Zealand. On the 26th, having not heard from the Assyrians, Colonel Bridges ordered a withdrawal. The Anzacs, however, were bitterly disappointed and complained that they were not giving the Assyrians a chance. They volunteered to ride forward to meet the Assyrians in Urmia, even suggesting they live on dry grass if they have to. Their request was denied and were ordered to turn back. They, however, continued to pester the Colonel until he allowed them to make camp further south to raise local levies to ride north. Before this work had started, however, the Assyrians, with Aga Butros in the lead, rode into their camp. The next day, the supply column and the Assyrians rode north towards Urmia, unaware of the events unfolded before them. On nearing St. Caleb, General Butros and the Anzacs witnessed a large number of refugees and learned that Urmia had fallen. Major Moore, commanding the British supply column, on learning of current events, had ordered the withdrawal of all British personnel. Captain Nicholl and the Anzacs, however, were very insistent they remain with the refugees and assist them to safety. Out of 90,000 refugees that fled Urmia, 60,000 survived due to the direct interference of Captain Savage, Captain Nicholl and 6 sergeants, one of whom, Sergeant Nimmo, was also from New Zealand. The captains and their party directed the refugee column to safety and remained in the rear, protecting them from constant attacks, which eventually cost the life of Captain Nicholl. Now that's the picture, ladies and gentlemen. After you hear the speeches in the hall and you read the plaques, you'll understand that without the actions of Captain Nicholl, most of us here from the Hakkari Mountains and Persia would not be alive today. Captain Nicholl and his comrades stood rear guard and defended the Assyrians. They stood in between them and the enemy. They directed the refugee column and at times led them to British lines. They sent word forward to have food and medicine ready for them, and this saved thousands. They literally removed clothing from their backs to cover Assyrian girls that had been stripped naked and violated. And this, ladies and gentlemen, this act, or what I call an extraordinary act of courage and compassion, and that's what we're celebrating today, his compassion, cost Robert Kenneth his young life. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, can I introduce please Mr. Lindsay Grigg, or Dr. Lindsay Grigg, sorry.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we drove up this morning, I pointed out to Gabby Wairevi Road, and this is where Ken Nicholl lived with his parents, my mother, Jack Nicholl's father, and their baby sister Ailsa. So Ken was a local boy. I don't want to talk about his exploits at war. I want to mention particularly the citation for his military cross to the battle in France. It goes into somewhat of detail of a pretty bloody shindig, to put it mildly. But the important thing, from my point of view, and knowing of the family and my uncle's upbringing, he was a simple, God-fearing Christian man. He was not afraid to die. He proved himself in the army that he was a leader and that he was capable of clear, quick thinking and had the courage to take action according to the outcome of that thinking, what the army calls an appreciation of the situation. And he did it, come what may. Now in France, he didn't have to